Okay, so I know it's been a little while and my apologies, but we are reacting to The Deep End episode 2, and the title of this one was The Safe Place. Okay, so this episode opens with Teal saying thank you for joining us today, and she's talking about how she started her business for positive world change. So Teal continues to say that she wants to build her company to a point that it is so large and so unstoppable that nothing can come against it. If we needed one more thing to scream cult, there it is. And then she says that she doesn't even want the people in the company that helped her build the company to be able to come against it. Red flags everywhere. Now this clip was from a previous YouTube video of hers from her channel. So then we meet some of her employees, and there was an explanation that her employees have all started as volunteers. Now remember that because we're gonna come back to that in a few minutes. So the first one we meet is Tristan, and this person is the events coordinator. She explains how her family wanted her to become a doctor, and she was actually in school to become a doctor when she dropped out because she found Teal and she wanted to go and work with Teal and be part of this movement. Then we meet Cyan. Now Cyan is not his real legal name, which another red flag. Are we changing names now because you're hiding from family? Were you kidnapped, sir? Do we need to send out the search team? His legal name is actually Matthew. The name change came about when he and Teal were talking about he didn't look like a Matthew. He needed a different name, and Cyan is the name they came up with. And then of course we meet Matthias, who we met in the first episode. So he's not new to the series at this point, but he is her manager. And he says that his number one goal, if you see me looking down, my notes are down here. And I'm trying not to look down and remember everything, but it's nearly impossible for me. So he says that his number one goal is to get her as big as possible. Of course, because why else would she hire him? Is she paying him? We don't know. We don't know. I don't know if she pays anybody. Then we meet Gracie. Gracie is Teal's assistant. Gracie says that when she saw Teal, she thought to herself, is she even human? And how does she have the answers that nobody else has? She goes on to say that she eats, breathes, and sleeps Teal's practices. She also says that she hasn't left Teal's side in about 7 years. 7 years. Like, how do you have a life? Do you go anywhere? Do you have friends outside of this community? Because that screams cult. Like, if you are not allowed to communicate or leave Teal's side, that's a problem. And I still don't understand how this is all still allowed. I think it comes down to the amount of brainwashing that these people are under, because they won't speak up because they don't see anything wrong with it. Which brings me to what Teal says right before they enter this round table discussion. She says that everyone in her community that is quote unquote working for her has to be willing to sacrifice everything for this. Like, that is not, no, that's not okay. Like, what? Excuse me, pardon me, come again? Okay, so now we're at this round table meeting with Teal and all of her quote unquote employees. This is where it starts to get uncomfortable with Teal and Juliana. Juliana, to refresh your memory, is Blake's girlfriend, now wife. And Blake and Teal had a previous relationship and broke it off, but she kind of still comes off as claiming him as hers. So she says that this isn't a safe community and Blake is her safe space. She's telling everyone that the problem with it not feeling safe anymore is when Blake has a girlfriend that has opposing opinions. This is another reason that this whole thing leans toward being a cult, because in a cult, if you don't have the same belief systems or you speak up against somebody else's opinion, then you are typically ostracized and written off and nobody can communicate with you. So that is why this is another arrow pointing to cult-like mentality, talking to Juliana in this way and basically saying, like, you can't disagree with anything that I teach, which is humanly impossible. Juliana explains to Teal that she is open to any and all experiences. Basically saying like, I'm open to this, I want to hear what everybody has to say. Just kind of making it feel like I'm gonna have my opinions, but I wanna hear what everybody else has to say and their feelings on everything. So Teal then says that they are, quote, terrified because they have had members turn and leave the community before. My question to this is, why are you terrified about somebody leaving? Like, I can understand maybe you have attachment issues, but when it comes to people leaving a community like this where they're doing such controversial practices, it makes me wonder if the reason they're terrified of people leaving the community and turning on them is because they're going to speak out and tell what's really going on behind closed doors and what is happening, which we are going to address in a few minutes here, along with the employees maybe not being paid. So then it cuts to Blake and Juliana out on the porch talking to each other. Blake is pretty much comforting her at this point and just kind of telling her like everything is gonna be okay and just making sure that she feels okay with moving here. Then of course it cuts to Teal, and Teal is saying that she doesn't think that Juliana has truly gotten a real taste of what she's signing up for. What is the real taste? Does the real taste come along when the cameras aren't around, when the cameras aren't recording you, when nobody's there to kind of speak up for somebody that's being treated wrong? Is that when the real taste of what she's in for comes along? Like, what does that mean? Then we get to see Teal being interviewed on a podcast, and the podcaster asks Teal why she thinks that people call her a cult leader. Why do people call her a cult leader? And her answer was because the people calling her a cult leader think that that will scare other people off. That's not the case. Like, when you're actually a cult leader, that's why people are calling you a cult leader. You are forming a cult. Then she says what she feels about cults, and she says that she thinks of cults as really having a foundation and a system of control of people. She doesn't think cult leaders mean to start a cult, and cult leaders don't take the same time to look at their own shadow. So she's kind of like backtracking her way out of being a cult leader by saying this because she takes the time to look at her own shadow and blah, blah, blah. But that's not really what a cult leader is. So maybe someone should tell her. Are you gonna tell her? Am I gonna tell her? Who's gonna tell her? We get to see Blake on the phone with the police in one scene where he is contacting the police because there's a woman sending threatening messages about exposing Teal and her community for what they really are. And she wants her money back for the training she took part in. So this isn't some kind of outsider. This is somebody that went to the compound and took part in the training and saw this community for what it really is. And she's basically like, she wants her money back or she's going to go speak out about what went down. I kind of wonder, I don't know if they touched on this at any point, but do these people sign an NDA? I don't know if that would be a red flag because I've had to sign NDAs before and that's not always a red flag. So I wonder if they had to sign NDAs and that's why they're not speaking out. But anyway, I digress. So Blake is still on the phone with the police and he's explaining how they receive these threats more often than not, which isn't a surprise to me. So after he is on the phone with the police, they go to a scene where, again, they're all sitting at the table and Teal is in tears, and she is talking about the issue with her haters and how it's so overwhelming that she doesn't even know where to start. Maybe start by stopping your cult-like practices and encouraging people to unalive themselves or picture unaliving themselves, because when somebody is mentally ill, picturing unaliving themselves could lead to the action actually happening. So you don't have the right training, and that's why your haters are coming after you. So anyway, she's crying, and she said that she wants the process that she takes people through around unaliving themselves to be adopted by mainstream psychology.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
What she didn't understand is that people thought it'd be possible that entertaining the concept of suicide would cause people to commit. Again, that's because you don't have the proper training to understand what is actually going on. So that's why. That's why they haven't adopted your practices into mainstream psychology. Then she just gets frustrated because nobody sitting at the table with her is saying anything. She's just a lot. She's a lot, and not in a good way. So this is where the private investigator comes in. And Matthias is on a Zoom call. Matthias, again, is Teal's manager. So he's on a Zoom call with this private investigator. Her name is Molly. So they had a call kind of explaining what needs to be done. Molly, at this point, is watching Teal's videos, her YouTube videos. She watches the videos where Teal is talking about picturing yourself unaliving yourself. And then we see Molly talking to the president of the American Association of, and she's asking this man why people are concerned about videos of Teal talking about this topic, and about this topic in regards to people at risk. He explains to Molly how Teal saying visualize you're unaliving yourself without knowing the state of the person watching on the other side is where the problem comes in, because there's no quality control. You don't know what the other person, like, you really don't know where the other person is in their headspace when they are watching these videos that are on YouTube openly for anybody to watch, anybody that has access to the internet. So he explains to her why this is dangerous. She also talks to some people that have worked with Teal. It essentially sounds like these are people that struggled finding the mental health support that they actually needed. So whether it was insurance or financial or just not having anybody in their area that was able to help them, that feels like the demographic of people that were turning to Teal to help them through these situations. And that brings me to just another point. It's something that I stand by, is that our mental health industry definitely needs a little assistance, especially with everything that's happened in the past few years. There needs to be more support and more guidance. We don't need to adopt Teal's practices, but there needs to be more. And I hope that that is something that's being worked on. Now, at this point, this is really all of the research that we have seen Molly do thus far. So she says that Teal being an attractive woman is probably the catalyst of her being a target right now. And so far, she doesn't seem to think that anything that Teal is doing is wrong. This documentary is literally all over the place, and it gives you like this eerie, but not spooky eerie, just like this weird feeling. So then we cut back to seeing Blake and Juliana. And Blake is now playing the xylophone and talking to Juliana about how they met and where they are today. Super strange, but happy for them because they do seem very happy and genuinely in love. Then we see Teal. I think at this point she was in a hot tub, and she was talking about how Juliana has edges that essentially need to be smoothed out, or there's going to continue to be tension between her and Juliana. She related this to two stones that were rough rubbing together until they get smooth, and then that way they can smoothly rub together. We get to see Teal leading a meditation in this big circle in the middle of the desert, is what it looks like. And this meditation is exploring the loneliness of the people that are there. This is where we meet Amir. Now, Amir, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. It's spelled A-M-I-R. And he's a follower, and he is in an interview, and he's talking about how all of these practices are so over his head, and that is what he said. But he wants to be a part of something, so he just overlooks that. And this relates to like being in an MLM or being in any cult, really, is because you want to feel that sense of belonging. You want to be a part of something bigger. So he seems to be searching for that and grasping at straws to be a part of something big. So it's interesting because he's talking to somebody else that's there, and he said that apparently this is not his first time coming to whatever event they have going on. I forget what it was called. And he said that the first year he was there, he definitely thought it was a cult. But he came back because he said he needs help. And he's just looking for somebody to help him. And that just broke my heart, because he shouldn't have to go to these lengths to find the help that he needs. And it could be a number of things preventing him from getting the correct help that he needs, but this is not the help that he needs. And you can clearly see that. So then it cuts to him talking to Teal. And Teal is talking at him and just telling him that he has no cohesive thoughts. And she says, quote, "Why the do you think the universe would put you in front of me if everything was fine?" He goes on to say that he thinks it could be a sexual thing because he is attracted to her. She's not a bad looking woman. So, I mean, naturally, probably most guys that gravitate toward her, that's the first thing they see. They have eyeballs. This is how human nature works. So he said that that is initially what he thinks attracted him to her. So now Teal is pissed, and it shows her in the house on the phone. She is talking about how she hates the spiritual field, and she just did not receive this well. She was so mad. So after she had her temper tantrum, they are then in a different room, and Teal is talking to Amir with the entire team. He's telling her about his experience with his mom, who had unalived herself. So he's really in a place where he's opening up and letting her know the things that he has gone through and the things that he's going through. And Teal offers to bring her mom in through channeling. And this may be controversial, but I am a woo person, so I don't think that that is too far-fetched. I do think that you can speak to spirits on the other side and all of those things. If people think I'm out of my mind, and that's fine. I don't need them to believe me. It is what it is. So she offers to channel and bring her in. His mom ends up coming through Juliana. So she said that she feels stuck. And this is also something that I've heard in the past. My father unalived himself, so I have heard in the past when I've gotten readings, he is stuck and he is not happy and all of those things. So I don't know if I disagree with this part of the episode. His mom was channeled through Juliana, and she says that she's feeling stuck and she has not been able to fully cross over, and Juliana is speaking, and they're making it so that Amir's mother is the one talking through Juliana. She is apologizing for everything. Amir is very emotional about this, understandably so. And then under the instruction of Teal, he tells her that she can go and it's okay. When Amir's mom leaves Juliana's body, Juliana passes out. Then we see Juliana explaining to Teal that she was surprised at how good she was at channeling. Teal says that she feels like Juliana is better at doing this with her, meaning the channeling, than any people that have been doing it with her for years are. So Juliana is clearly starting to feel like she fits in now, and seems like Teal is warming up to her a little bit. All right, so after that is all said and done, we go back to see the private investigator, Molly, and she's talking to a gentleman named Jared, and he is a former inner circle member of Teal's. He's explaining how he helped her with her website, and he did end up moving in with her and working for her. And this is where it gets even more sketchy. So brace yourselves. Jared is explaining how he wanted to help Teal and her vision become a reality because he believed in what she does so much. He talks about how at the time they were working together, she was only selling the paintings that healed people. Those are her frequency paintings, and I go over those in my initial deep dive video of Teal. They're just not that great, but you know, if they're healing people. But he goes on to say that he has had several that he stared at for years and they never healed him. Shocker, right? I am mind blown that they have not worked for him. So Molly asks the $1,000,000 question. Were you paid for your services? He says that he was given room and board. So no, he was not paid a monetary amount to work for Teal and live with Teal and help her in her business make money. She did not compensate him in a monetary way for his work. Jared also said that the moment the cameras go off and no one is watching, that everything changes. And that doesn't really surprise me because obviously, like Teal said before, she is terrified that people are leaving the community and speaking out, and she alluded to essentially being afraid for that reason. So it really makes me wonder what actually goes on, and it's scary to think about, especially when you think about all of the different cults that have had documentaries made about them on Netflix and the outcomes of those cults. It's terrifying. Obviously, there were no cameras around when Jared left the compound, but when he did, he said that Teal said to him, if I were you, I would just go myself. What? Who says that to somebody? You are not mentally stable to help people through these things, and that right there should be the cherry on the top to show that is the case. So you can see that Molly is at this point overwhelmed by the information that she's getting from Jared, who left on bad terms. You can also see that this is where her thoughts of what is happening are turning, and she is kind of like, okay, maybe I was wrong. So Jared said that it gets even more interesting and goes on to say that Teal asked him what he's willing to do for this cause, and he said that he would be willing to kill someone and put them in the backyard, meaning bury them. So those are the types of people that she's looking to bring in and have volunteer or work for her or whatever it might be. They have to be willing to go to those extents, those extremes, to work for her and be a part of this cult. So once Molly and Jared finish talking, they wrap up the call, and Molly is explaining how she feels like what she found feels like a burden, and she thinks that she has opened Pandora's box. She also says that she has to include all of these things in her report. So this is going to come back to bite Teal in the ass for sure, without a doubt. Okay, and then we come to the last part of the episode where Teal's talking to Blake, and she's just super controlling of him. Like, it reminds me, I probably didn't have the healthiest relationships when I was a teenager. It reminds me of teenage me. Like, I need to get my grip on you and you're not going anywhere. Not like that anymore. I could care less. Beast. But Teal is talking to Blake. She's very controlling of him. Blake is telling Teal that he's thinking about asking Juliana to marry him. This was very fast, but if they're happy, that's great. So now Teal's attitude has changed and I'm really confused, and she's all excited and she's offering to go ring shopping with Blake and talking about how she kind of likes Juliana, and the reason is because she doesn't really react when Blake touches Teal. It's just a really weird dynamic. They're in a bedroom, sitting on a bed, and it's just awkward. It feels like Teal thinks that she's still going to be romantically involved with Blake regardless of Juliana, because like she said, she doesn't react when Blake touches her. So then very quickly, we see like bits and pieces of Blake and Juliana's wedding. Apparently they got engaged. She said yes, and now they're married. And that was the end of the episode. They did end up getting married on Teal's compound. Shocker, I know, but they probably were not allowed to leave. So they got married there, and that's where the episode ended. So I will see you guys for episode 3's reaction. Promise it won't take that long. It'll be later this week.